Hi, my name is Joe Yarshin, and thank you for tuning in to Kick in the Rear podcast. The real estate investment review, the goal of this podcast is to review books related to real estate, business, and entrepreneurship to help you with your real estate journey. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Welcome in to Kick in the Rear podcast, episode 31. My name is Joe Yarshin. Today we're going to be reviewing The Multifamily Millionaire by Mr. Brandon Turner and also Brian Murray. I've reviewed several of Brandon Turner's books. This happens to be one of the best ones as far as real estate books are concerned, simply because it focuses on multifamily properties. So I think you're going to like this one, especially if you want to drill down your real estate investing career into something more specific. So without further ado, let's get into it. So right away, we'll start with chapter 1. I do love Brandon Turner's books from Bigger Pockets because he does a great key takeaways section at the end of each chapter. So to review things, it makes it a lot easier on me, but it also just does a good job of summarizing what he said in the chapter. If you miss something, you can always go back and touch on it. But in chapter 1, it's all about the introduction to multifamily properties, defining what it is. And he says that there's 8 reasons to love small multifamily unit properties. So number 1 is for cash flow. 2 is for the simple low-cost financing, abundance of opportunities, less competition, growth potential, opportunity to buy from bad, burned out, checked out landlords, house hacking potential, and it being a gateway to larger deals. So he talks about some of the frustrations of being a multifamily owner, but again, the key takeaways from this chapter, he goes over the difference between large and small multifamilies, and investing it lies in the approach. Small multifamily is much more hands-on and personal, while the large multifamily is more corporate professional. Understanding both is essential to becoming a real estate millionaire. So small multifamily real estate is powerful due to the cash flow it can generate, financing opportunities available, etc. And then there are different pitfalls of it, but he discusses that a lot of the guidelines laid out in the book is going to help you avoid those pitfalls. So in chapter 2, he talks about the capital stack and the comfort and ability to grow. So exponential growth means growing by percentages, such as doubling each time rather than linearly. If you want to achieve financial freedom fast, you must rely on exponential growth. In chapter 3, there's a quote here from Jack Welch. He's the former chairman and CEO of General Electric. He says, "Good business leaders create a vision, articulate the vision, passionately own the vision, and relentlessly drive it to completion." So I love that quote. I did underline something on page 52. One of the truest signs of a good leader is their ability to align all the members of their team and inspire them toward a common mission. So continuing on page 55, I underlined a book called Traction. So I'm probably going to be reviewing that one. It talks about how it's more important that you decide than what you decide. So taking action rather than thinking about taking action. So a lot of good takeaways from this chapter on page 57. Starting into chapter 4, property type. So getting crystal clear on your focus. So your crystal clear criteria is how you narrow down your property type. And he reviews some of the different types of multifamilies. And this was really good because I didn't realize all the different kinds there were. So this was a very good description. And then the key takeaways here, he talks about the single-story side-by-sides, up and downs, cottages, monster houses, starter apartment buildings, ADUs, and garden apartment buildings. In chapter 5, choosing your location. So the market and the location are very important as far as the crystal clear criteria. We go into the key takeaways of this chapter on page 84. Taking the time now to decide on the right location and market will help narrow your search, avoid wasting time later on in areas that don't fit your goals. In chapter 6, he reviews the property condition as the crystal clear criteria number 3. He has a quote from Joanna Gaines there on page 86. And then scale to the end of the chapter here. Key takeaways. If choosing to invest in a fixer-upper, you're going to want to find alternative financing options. Most banks won't lend on a property that's in rough shape, so you'll need to work to improve your contractor management skills, as cost and time overruns can turn a good deal bad. So on Chapter 7, reviewing your price range as part of the crystal clear criteria, he goes into that, setting your MAPP. So that's your maximum purchase price, and then also developing your minimum purchase price, MIPP. So he starts with the maximum purchase price and drills down from there. So key takeaways: rather than looking at every property, it's important to get realistic about how much you can afford as well as how small you want to go. Taking a look at cash on hand, research lenders, learning about closing costs to determine how much you can reasonably spend on a property. So he goes into that a little bit more. My background in mortgage, I kind of have some familiarity with that. So it's good to keep that in mind. On Chapter 8, some really good information on profitability and analysis. He says it's the most important chapter in the book, and it's the longest chapter. So I'm going to skip right to the end because I'm going to just read off some of these takeaways. I'm going to review all of them because I like this chapter. It was just very thick, thorough. I did underline on page 128, though. There's a really nice graph there of the income, expenses, pure cash flow, and cash on cash return. Same thing on page 130, discusses the property classes, cash on cash return goals. So key takeaways here is don't fall into the trap of phantom cash flow. Instead, your metric should be pure cash flow that's been purified, truthfully acknowledging and accounting for all expenses, even future irregular ones. So don't go by gut estimates. Relied on tried and true equations to help you make smart investments. So, boiling it all down to math. The 4-square method, it's that 4-step process designed to help you estimate the total income, expenses, and pure cash flow, cash on cash return you can expect from each of your multifamily units. That was on that page 128 and 130 that I said was good to notate. Deal analysis is one of the most important skills an investor can have, but it must be learned and practiced. So Chapter 9 discusses the multifamily millionaire model, differences between how properties are valued, introduction to cap rates. I circled this page on 138 because I thought it was very valuable. So your net operating income divided by your property value is one way to calculate the cap rate. This section was very eye-opening as far as showing the value of multifamily properties. In Chapter 10, the strategy for finding great deals, I circled this page 150 here. He talks about something called the LAPS funnel. What that stands for is leads, analysis, pursue, and success. And he reviews each step with you along the way. I underlined the section under success on page 152 because I thought it was good. He says, if I'm getting 10% of my offers accepted, I know I just need to make more offers and I'll close more deals. It's as simple as that. So he stresses the importance of actually submitting offers, because if you accept the premise that 10% of the deals are going to go through, then it's just a numbers game. So key takeaways: finding real estate deals is all about the LAPS funnel. Track each level in the LAPS funnel, set goals, and aim to beat them. Chapter 11 is finding small multifamily deals on market. So he goes all about the on market method here, which is really great. On page 161, he has an agent interview form for your real estate agents. On page 166, he talks about changing strategy to increase your income, adding income sources like onto the properties, like, for example, laundry, vending machines, rent storage. All those things can increase your bottom line on a deal to make it more profitable. And then in Chapter 12, finding small multifamily deals off market. So the other side of the deal find is the off market deals. He gives strategies for how to do this, which is really great because a lot of people have never done it before, don't know where to start. So he gives you some nice insights on how to do that. Chapter 13, walking a property, what to look for. This is something he's had in several of his books, something to look for when you're walking properties. In Chapter 14, traditional financing for small multifamily. So he talks about the different ways to finance, and then scaling. It's just a really good introduction to amortization, term length, principal and interest. If you're unfamiliar with these terms, I work in mortgage, so I kind of skimmed this chapter because I was familiar with it. Talks about debt to income ratio, capital reserves. He talks about DSCR loans, which stands for debt service coverage ratio. He talks about making a list of your lenders. There's a checklist there. Great takeaways from that chapter if you're unfamiliar with financing. Chapter 15 it talks about creative financing, specifically the house hack. So a lot of people have talked about house hacking. He gives a high-level overview there. In Chapter 16, Creative Financing Part 2, he discusses partnerships and how those can be helpful. I know David Green on the Bigger Pockets podcast says he prefers to do deals by himself, but having some part of a deal versus no part of a deal is sometimes better. So Chapter 17, the BRRRR method, which David Green, again, has a book on with Bigger Pockets Publishing. So check out that book. I've reviewed it before. It's a great one if you haven't read it. So he goes and breaks down the entire process of the BRRRR method, which is great. And then Chapter 18, he talks about making offers that stick, how offers work themselves, the criteria of the deal, how to make the off-market and on-market deals. And then he gives tips for making compelling offers, what happens after you've submitted the offer. Chapter 19 is all about due diligence. So he discusses everything with the property inspection, the attorneys, the due diligence period, estoppel agreements, which I thought was really unique to talk about, verifying the lease contracts with the tenants, different zoning requirements, insurance and management requirements. Chapter 20, managing small multifamily. So he has a management book on how to manage rental properties. So check that book out if you haven't yet. It's also on my channel here. He discusses this in full detail about becoming a 5-star landlord. Really just this whole book had a lot of repeat concepts from some of his other book, but the early chapters in this book are really specific about multifamily and how these ideas tie into it. So in Chapter 21, accounting, taxes, legal entities, and he reviews a lot of that stuff as well. The tax benefits, 1031 exchanges and depreciation, appreciation, hiring a CPA, which I found helpful for my own personal real estate journey, saved me a lot on my tax return. In the back of the book, he has a couple of tools you can use. So overall, it's hard to give this guy anything less than A+ on his books. He's just so comprehensive and gives everything. He pours his heart and soul into these books. So I'm going to get volume 2 eventually. I'm not sure when I'm going to review that one because it's about the large multifamily deals. So if you like today's episode, please like, share, subscribe. And as always, bippity boppity investment property. See you next week. Let's go.